Good morning, everybody. Is the microphone okay? Okay, great. My name's Nicole Mitchell. I'm visiting here, a visiting professor at University of Paris 8 in Saint-Denis. And I'm a composer, creative flutist. And I'm here today to share some of my compositional process with you all. So I'm assuming that all of you write music, yes? Okay, great. And hello, everybody on Facebook, if anybody's out there. I'm talking to you as well. So I'm actually going to start with something for you to listen to and not look at, because I feel that when you look at scores, you get caught up in the technicalities of things. But I want you to imagine a club called the Velvet Lounge. It was run by a saxophonist, Fred Anderson, in Chicago on the South Loop, like south of downtown. And this was a place where musicians had the opportunity to play their own music, to develop their own sound, and without a lot of rules, you know, for us to have a space to play for audiences. And I'm going to play a tune that definitely grew in that space. It's called Thanking the Universe, and it's actually a song where the lyrics are about finding music as a pathway. But it's a love song. And I think you'll enjoy it. You'll hear part of what my aesthetic is. I'm, you know, from an older generation of you, mostly. And at the time that I came up, we had things called styles. You all don't consider yourself as part of a style anymore in your generation so much. People were in camps, you know, but we realize these labels are mostly for marketing, but the music grows beyond a certain style. You know, you have the bebop style, you have the swing style, you have free jazz as a style, you know, you have a lot of different styles, right? But for me, it was about fluidity. It's always been about a fluid connection between all of the different aesthetics that I am attracted to and that I like. So in this song, Thanking the Universe, you'll hear some rock influences, you'll hear some blues, you'll hear some more traditional jazz. I'm not going to show you the score for this one, but I promise to show scores for others, you know. But just to start out, I just want you to listen.
didn't know this was. Is this the life I was reaching for hungrily? And you are the messenger, showing me the way to dance within myself, to discover the inner jewels I've been carrying all along in my mind. I didn't know, I didn't know, I didn't know, I didn't know, no. I didn't know, I didn't know, I did not know, I didn't know, no. I didn't know, 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 I did not know. I did not know that music, when I called it with my full desire, would envelop me like my mama's soft arms, or that I would be overwhelmed and satiated in your embrace, and content with the endlessness of the path in my gaze, and content with the endlessness of the path in my gaze, and content with the endlessness of the path in my gaze, and content with the endlessness of the path in my gaze. I did not know that music, when I called it with my full desire, would envelop me like my mama's soft arms, or that I would be overwhelmed and satiated in your embrace, and content with the endlessness of the path in my gaze, and content with the endlessness of the path in my gaze, and content with the endlessness of the path in my gaze, and content with the endlessness of the path in my gaze. Thanking the universe for our path together. 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 Thanking the universe for our path
Thank you. So if you were listening closely, I'm sure you heard grooves, different grooves. You heard vamps, like repetitive spaces for the improvisation. You heard soul. You heard kind of, like lyrical content with chorus and the verse and things like this, and they're all being put together in my own way, and this is kind of like the heart of my work. This group is Black Earth Ensemble, which is my main platform for compositions. How many of you have your own group to play your music? That's great. That's fantastic. It's really important. It's really exciting, isn't it, to write a piece of music and then you get to actually have the fulfillment of hearing what it sounds like. And a lot of people that write other music, like new music or classical music, it takes a lot of work for them to actually get an opportunity to hear what they've written. And sometimes it might be years before they actually hear an ensemble play their music. But this was really exciting to me about jazz, was that I could make my own group and then I could be fulfilled pretty instantly, and also use it as a laboratory to develop my ideas. So I know you all are jazz focused, right? Is that true? Yes? Or you write other forms of music as well? Mostly jazz, or yes? Okay. So I'm going to start with a tune, giving you guys the score for a tune. This is called Aqua Blue. So, you know, I love having a 1 or 2 pager that kind of has all the information on it. That can be really fulfilling. But I also like writing other things that I like challenging myself. In this case, with Aqua Blue, it's a blues, but I always have my own spin on things. I like having odd measures, for example, and I also like having some twists and turns in the melody. So in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 bars for my head rather than 12. But you will hear the blues in this piece. And so sometimes I like elongating the space where the changes, where you're expecting of a change comes, which you'll hear in this piece. This is definitely inspired by Eric Dolphy in some ways, this piece. It's performed by my group Ice Crystal with Jason Adashevitz on vibraphone, Josh Abrams on bass, and Frank Rosalie, who's been living in Amsterdam for a while now, but used to be in Chicago, on drums, and myself on flute. And so the melody is pretty typical for a blues. I have a little interplay between the melody and the bass, where there's some call and response here that you can see. And then a little fun repetition for the last turnaround phrase at the end. And then I have, to just mix things up a little bit, I have an interlude. So instead of just being like head, solo, head, I have a little bit of interlude in between the solos to make life a little more interesting for the tune. But it's a pretty simple, straightforward tune. So I'll start with that. solo. Actually, I think I am going to show you the next one. So just to give context in the same group, so that was a more traditional tune, I would say. This one is also a one-pager, but it's a little different. It has some other influences, but with the same ensemble, the same instrumentation, just to show other places that you can bring an ensemble like this. So this is called Above the Sky. And, you know, I'm creating I'm looking at them as kind of like, I have 3 settings in this piece, 3 vibes or 3 environments for the improvisation. So the first one is just kind of this floating, repeating pattern in 5. And then the second is this, you know, it changes into this kind of chordal vamp, and then this 8th note movement. So I'm playing around with some more classical influences, I would say, and I'm giving the melody to the bass instead of to the flute. So in this case, the bass has the melody, and the flute is more playing in the environment and supporting line, which I like the idea of challenging the roles of the instruments, not always having it the same way. So the flute and the vibes have a really great texture together, so that's why I really like this group, and playing with the vibes on the flute creates a really nice sound. It's like the sound of water, which is why I called the group Ice Crystal. And that's the whole piece, is just one page. Bass playing melody. So you might have noticed in these little notes on the side, free, swing, solo. These are the notes for the drummer. So when you're in the group, you know, a lot of times there's a lot that's communicated outside of the score verbally. So in this case, I wanted the drums to play colors, especially on the cymbals in the first section. But then I wanted him to play, you know, swing in the second section. And then the third, I wanted him to solo against the time that we were giving, because we're just playing eighth notes. So we're actually holding the pulse. So that gave him a space for him to improvise. So that was my directions for the drums right here. And I play with a lot of drummers, which have varying interests. Some of them love reading charts that are super detailed, and they get really excited trying to play the chart. Others can't stand reading charts, and it's like they just want me to verbally give them, you know, like I'll come up with a rhythmic idea and just give them something to work with so they can embellish off of it. So there's a lot of, just a lot of diversity there with working with drummers in this context. And so it's good to be able to do all of it, to be able to write out a drum chart, you know, that is going to be understandable, because a lot of times you write a drum chart and the drummer's like, what does this mean? You know, like, I don't understand. And then also to be able to communicate verbally. It's the same also with vocalists. So, for example, when I played the first piece, Thanking the Universe, if you looked at the score, the actual lyrics in the song is a very set lyric, but I gave the vocalist a scratch track of me singing it and gave them the words, and then they learn it by ear and sing it. It depends on the vocalist you're working with, but sometimes it's easier that way so that you get the kind of vibe that you want. All the singers that bring the vibe don't necessarily read, so you have to be flexible with that. And also, I just want to say, like, I'm going through a lot of varying material, so it might be easier to ask questions as we go, but my idea was to just share all these things, and then we could ask questions later. So you could take notes if you want to ask questions, or you could interrupt me if you want to ask a question. So now I'm going to, like, move into territory with another group that actually was recorded on a French label, Rogue Art, called Sonic Projections, with Craig Taborn on piano, David Boykin on tenor sax, and Chad Taylor on drums, and myself on flute. And so with this group, it's kind of a super group where they could really do anything that I wrote. So I liked coming up with, even though it's like a jazz combo, I wanted to write some more challenging music for them. So this piece is called Visitation, and what I did in the score, there's some parts where there's a lot of transitions into different vibes, and you know, I wrote out concepts for the improvisation because it's not chords that they're improvising off of, and you'll see that as we go. But it's, you know, it's very dense in terms of how it's written out. This is an example of like an ascending improvisation that I really wanted to express on the notation. And so you'll hear what that sounds like. And then here, it's like, a lot of times, like, the the composers won't write out this. They'll kind of tell verbally what they want the musicians to do. But I wanted to challenge myself to put it on paper, what I wanted. And so I'm going to play this piece for you guys now that I explained some of it. Thank you. So I also love working with words. I would say that everything I write tells a story. I love narrative. And there was definitely a story that comes with this. I may not share the story, but the story is embedded in the music. But sometimes I actually work with people who do spoken word and poetry and try to write music around their words, and that's really challenging. Like, I'm still trying to learn how to do that most effectively. I think making space for someone who's speaking words, but also having the music itself stand on its own is really important, so that both things be independent, that the words be strong and the music be strong, but that the words aren't being lost in the music. So I worked with one of my mentors, Hakeem Adabuti, who is a founder of Third World Press, which is the longest running African-American publishing house in the US, and he's also a poet. And so I made a whole album using some of his poems called Liberation Narratives. And with this, I was also, sometimes when I collaborate with other people, I want to really connect with what their aesthetics are too, so it's not just my aesthetics. So, you know, I combined, you know, for example, he has a school for children, and every morning before they go to class, they're doing African drumming and dance before they actually go to class. And so I wanted to incorporate the drum, like hand drums, in this music for this piece. And it's a song that, I mean, for him it was a poem that I made into a song. And so the lyrics are definitely kind of a call for self-determination. So I wanted to express that in the melody and in the styles of the music. So I have like reggae in the music, I have African drumming in the music, I also have jazz in the music. So I'm kind of combining these quote-unquote styles to do this. And so the piece is called Move. And I think I have to play it from, let's see, from here. This isn't the latest version of the score, so some things aren't perfectly matched up there.
Move into our own, not theirs, into ours. They own it for the moment, the unclean world, the polluted space, the uncensored air, your footsteps as they run wildly in the wrong direction. Move into our own, not theirs, into ours. Move, you can't buy own. Own is like your hair if you let it live, a natural extension of own self. Own is your reflection, your total being, the way you walk, talk, dress, relate to each other is own. Own is you. Cannot be bought or sold. You cannot buy your writing hand, your dancing feet, your speech, your woman if she's real, your manhood. Own is ours. All we have to do is take it. Take the way you take from one another. The way you take Arthur Rubinstein over Thelonious Monk. The way you take Eugene Genovese over Jerome Bennett. The way you take Allen Ginsberg over Amiri Baraka. The way you take Marianne Moore over Gwendolyn Brooks. The way you take inaction over action. Move. Move to act, act. Act into thinking and think into action. Try to think, try to think, try to think. Like I said, into your own, think, try to think. Don't hurt yourself, I know it's new. Try to act. Act into thinking and think into action. Can you do it, huh? I say, can you do it? Moving like a drunk gorilla, ha ha chi chi, ha ha chi chi, ha ha chi chi, ha ha chi chi. for a car washer, a billboard for nothingness, a sane madman, a reincarnated Clark Gable. Either you is or you ain't. The dead living are the world makers, the image breakers, the rule takers. Black man, black woman, can you stop a hurricane? I remember back in 1954, 55 in Chicago, we had 13 days without a murder. That was before them colored people started calling themselves black. Move, move, move to be moved. Move into your own clean. Clean, you're the first black hippie I ever met. Why you be dressing so funny anyhow, huh? I mean, is that you clean? Why you be dressing like an airplane? Can you fly? I mean, will your blue gym shoes fly you? What about your tailor-made bell bottoms clean? Can they lift you above madness? Turn you into a right direction? And that red and pink scarf around your neck, what is that for, clean? Will it help you fly? Yeah, swing, swinging, swing, swinging high above telephone wires with dreams of this and that and illusions of trying to take barbecue ice cream away from lion-minded Negroes who didn't even know that Polish is more than a sausage. Clean and attack, rusted and nail, haven't had bath since Columbus sailed. When you gonna be something real clean, like your own? Yeah, when you gonna be your own self? The dead living are the world makers, the image breakers, the rule takers. Black man, black woman, can you stop a hurricane? Mississippi couldn't. Black man, if you couldn't stop what Mississippi couldn't, be it. Be it. Black woman, be the wind, the wind, the wind, the wind, the wind, the wind. Ooh, we bomb bomb. Ooh, we boom. Ooh, we boom boom. Ooh, we bomb. If you can't stop a hurricane, be it. Ooh, we bomb. Ooh, we boom boom. Ooh, we bomb. Be the baddest black hurricane ever came, a black hurricane. Ooh, we boom boom. Ooh, we bomb. Ooh, we boom boom. Ooh, we bomb. Be the baddest black hurricane that ever came, a black hurricane named Beulah. Come on, Beulah, do the hurricane. Ooh, we boom boom. Ooh, we bomb. Ooh, we boom boom. Ooh, we bomb. Move. Move to be moved from the unmovable into our own. Yourself is own. Yourself is own. Own yourself. Go where we go. Hear the unheard and do the undone. Do it, do it, do it now, clean. And tomorrow your sons and daughters will be alive to praise you.
And then back to the score. House music. Sorry. Thank you. I was going to say something about this. I don't know if you heard the modulations in the melody, like it just kept moving up half steps and things like that. Really, the music is about having fun, you know? And so it's about developing a relationship with your ear and allowing your creativity, like trusting your creativity to write what you're hearing, because that's really where the most exciting music will come. Not from, you can challenge yourself intellectually to try things and to challenge yourself to do different things, and then you still have to use your ear to kind of make it all finessed and make it work. I like using the eraser. Like you write stuff out, and then you got to come back and decide what you're not going to use. So I also like moving between the traditional notation, which you've mostly been seeing now, and graphic notation. So I'm going to show you a score. This is from my Xenogenesis album, which was inspired by science fiction writer Octavia Butler. And it's an exploration of fear. And I really couldn't get the vibe or the feeling without making this more of a graphic score for the musicians. Like just writing it out in traditional notation, like you saw when I did with Visitation, I tried to be real detailed. This is a kind of different approach with that. Obviously, I'm not going to play the whole album, just letting you see some of the different scores for the different movements. But I'm just going to play one movement called Sequence Shadows. And it starts off with, you know, kind of a bop line that kind of unravels, you know, because it's, if I read you the description of this piece, it says, when one keeps trying to wake from a dream, but the dream is of the past life, now you have awakened to try to accept the alien environment that is around you. You have entered a new and strange realm. One awakens to sequence shadows. The eyes cannot grasp the horrific strangeness it sees. So it sees sequence shadows. The new reality dances a strange dance, and the human must breathe and accept this new vision in the eyes. So it's about something that's familiar that now has become what I call the edge of beauty, when you take something all the way to the edge where you're not sure if you're comfortable with it or if you like it or not. So that's how this piece starts. And then it unravels. The way this score works is I have different melodies, and I can actually bring them in at different times depending on the momentum of how the ensemble is playing. So here's the first concept, which is this melody that's kind of given to all the parts, but in different places. They're starting in different places, like around, and then they start embellishing and kind of moving away from this melody, and it goes into like improvisation with the feeling of it, but like, you know, starting to embellish and unravel, and then, you know, it further unravels, and then there's this groove that happens with the bass and the drums, and also the cello will also comp in this aspect here that will be overlapping on top of this unraveling, and then in the end, you have this other melody that happens, this ascending melody that happens between the sax and the cello. In this case, I chose to write the melody out in a way that was easy to read, but I want it played like this, with so you'll hear how they approach that. And then this is kind of the ending vibe of this spiraling line between the flute and the trumpet. But different aspects of these different ideas can come in and out at different times of the piece. So it's not necessarily linear, but so it's hard to kind of look at it on the score. These are like where you have this rhythmic pulse, and then the vocalist is making these swooping sounds with emotional kind of syllabolic sounds instead of words. So yeah, let's take a listen to this. Yeah, sometimes you don't even need that much information to really make a good groove. This is 2 measures. But it's also important to me. I mean, if you're just listening and you're not knowing the score, it might sound like, oh, it's just free improv. But for me, it's important to have an identity for your improvisation, not just like, oh yeah, just do whatever, but like, you know, this has an identity because it has specific compositional material that they're using. And so when you're thinking about doing what we call free improvisation, it's good to have material for the people to work with, because then it gives your compositional identity to the piece. Otherwise, it's just kind of like, okay. And then it's depending too much on who the players are. You got some players that aren't that good, and it's like, you can't tell what the heck it is. You know what I mean? So that's really important for this type of music. So this is Black Earth Ensemble also. So I'm going to play another piece that's more of a graphic, you know, informed score. This is called Forest Wall Time Walk, and it's from my project Mandorla Awakening. So this piece comes from philosophical ideas, and I took the philosophical ideas and tried to figure out, how do I make music with it? So my question that I asked was, what is progress? I felt that in our Western society, we've kind of hit a brick wall with progress because we're focused on technology, but what is the technology for? Is it to actually make life on the planet better, like our lives as humans, and also our interaction with nature and with the earth? It doesn't seem like it. So how do we redefine that paradigm? So what I was doing was colliding duality. So I wanted to take this concept and collide a lot of different music traditions. So I brought in some musicians that play traditional Japanese music. Tatsu Aoki, who plays taiko and shamisen, and my friend Kojiro Omazaki plays shakuhachi flute. And I brought that in as a way of kind of creating like another society of collaboration where you have, you know, my friend Avery, who, you know, comes from the gospel tradition in Chicago. He's not on this particular piece so much, but in the project. And then I have also members of Black Earth that are string players, that Tamika was also playing not just cello, but banjo. So just combining these things and colliding these ideas. This piece is called Forest Wall Time Walk, and it was important to also have spaces for improvisation. So if you look at the score, it starts out with a taiko solo, and then it goes into this pattern, which is very loose because Tatsu doesn't really read music that much, so I just wanted to give a simple idea for him to work off of. And then I have Alex Wing on guitar, who's playing through this melody while he's improvising, and I wanted a really dirty sound, like a really like distorted, like very urban sound on the guitar, and then that's contrasting with the sound, the orchestral sounds of the violin, flute, and cello, and the shakuhachi is always kind of interloping with my flute. And then there's a space here for guitar solo where the drums stop, and then it goes into an improvisation for the violin. Then you're going to hear the cello and flutes play this line, and then it's going to get faster and faster and faster until it goes into kind of oblivion. So another one-pager, which I love, to put all the information on one page. When I can do that, I'm really excited. So I'll play that for you, Forest Wall Time Walk. This is another song that started playing. Thanks. So, how many of you have been wanting to write for other musicians that maybe don't improvise? Okay. That's a really, really amazing and fun challenge also, is how do you combine improvisers with people that mostly just read music? So I'm going to give a few examples of that. I'm going to play a few movements of a piece that I wrote for a chamber string orchestra and a trio, it's like an improvising quartet. Myself, it's artifacts, like myself, Tamika Reed on cello, and Mike Reed on drums. But there's also the bass player in the orchestra was also improvising a little bit. So it's like string orchestra with improvisers, and finding ways to make spaces for the improvisation, but also working with musicians that are mostly just reading. And with those musicians, I like making graphic scores because it just gives them an opportunity to figure out how to dive into improvisation. I'm not going to necessarily play those scores, the graphic scores for them right now, but this piece is called Nature's Balance, and it's part of the suite Decolonizing Beauty. And I have a bass marimba and bass, and sometimes it's fun to have the drums, the timpani, play melodic lines, and so I tried to do that in this piece. But it's pretty through composed for the most part, except for the solo parts for the cello. So this is called Nature's Balance. Thanks. I'm gonna play one more from that. This is more kind of trying to blend free improvisation with the orchestra. I think there's like a lot of possibilities with that. This is just one possibility. But it is a lot of fun writing for orchestra. It's also very challenging because normally you don't get a lot of time to rehearse, so it's very important that you write everything you want. So like with some of the scores where you saw there was a lot of verbal communication, this kind of situation, you don't have time for that. Like it has to really be detailed and written in there. I would say that from most of what you've heard, the melodic things are things, my relationship with composing is through my ear. I think people have different processes for writing. I would call my process a little more intuitive, even though sometimes I have concepts that I want to figure out. There's a piece, but I have a lot of repertoire that I actually don't write for improvisers at all, that are for musicians that mostly read. And a lot of times I'll have fun with conceptual ideas and figuring out how to map those out with the written material. So this piece is called Jagged Edges, and you'll hear a lot of activity and improvisation with the combo that's playing along with the orchestra. It's from this same suite of Decolonizing Beauty. share one more piece with you is a collaboration, because intercultural collaboration is one of my favorite things, when you work with other musicians and they may be coming from a completely different approach to making music. Sometimes you can't even write the music out. You have to just teach them by ear if they don't read. So how do you? It's a completely different process, and what you write becomes different. So this piece is called My Ancestors, and it was actually premiered here in France. It's called My Ancestors, and it also expresses like kind of the complexity of being African American, not having any memory in your family of like your origins because of slavery, but then collaborating with these musicians that know everything about their history because they're connected to it. So these musicians from Mali, Balake Sissoko, Babani Kone, and they're performing with members of Black Earth Ensemble. And so on one hand, I have a vocalist. She's African American, Mankwe Ndosi, but her mother's African American, her father is from Tanzania. So she's singing one aspect, and then Babani Kone is singing the other. And they're melding together and colliding in this song called My Ancestors. So this will be my final piece. I didn't bring the score for it, but I have the video, so hopefully you'll enjoy.
I do not
compositions, and I have no idea what you all are thinking now. And if you have any questions or thoughts, or this is a good time to maybe stretch too, but if you if you have any things that you thought about or wanted to ask about, yes?
Suggest maybe you can make a short break and then come back with questions.
Take a short break and then come back? Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, okay.
Okay, like 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Or of what you remember that we covered.
I have a question about a general thing.
Sure.
Always struggle as a flute player, but also as a composer, is combining drums with flute.
Okay.
So like the cymbals and stuff, I always think so much sound delay in the flute. I was wondering if you also have any experience with that, if you like a way to work around this, or what your thoughts are in general.
Okay, so she asked about how to combine the flute with the drums and the challenges of the cymbals being in the high frequency with the flute and competing sometimes sonically with the flute. As an improviser, I spent some years playing in free improvised sessions with very loud, very loud drummers. And I had to learn how to navigate with my frequency of my sound to not be lost inside of the sound of the drums, which is probably why I have such a strong sound on the flute. For improvising, depending on the texture that you're looking for, one thing that sounds really nice is when you bring in rods, hot rods, and you ask the drummer in some points of a composition to play hot rods. It can be really nice. Also, when you're writing, you don't have to have the drums playing the whole time. Like, there can be spaces even within a measure that are empty, depending. So it's really up to you in terms of the environment that you really want to experiment with ways to structure the rhythm section that's creating an environment that you want to improvise. So if you're playing the flute and you don't want like to be fighting like with this loud stuff, maybe you don't even want the drums.
Yeah, that's what I did in Math at Night Band. I just didn't have drums. But I feel like it's a very lazy solution.
To just get rid of the drums?
Just get rid of the drums.
I mean, it can be beautiful. I don't want to like play more music, but I did have this piece that I didn't play, which doesn't have, it just has like very soft use of drums and even glockenspiel, where you can give the drummer something else to do, and one thing I wanted to just express is that you're writing for musicians. And so you know how you are as a musician. You want to have fun. You don't want to be bored. You don't want to be playing the same thing over and over again. You want to have the freedom to embellish. You want to have space to be yourself. You want to be able to listen to what other people are doing. So when you're writing, you have to think about each line that you're writing or each instrument is a person. It's not just the instrument. So you don't want to write it making something super laborious and boring for them to do. So you want to give them something that's fun for them to work with. That's something that I just wanted to say. But I think with the drums, sometimes I like when they're loud, and of course, when you're playing amplified is different from acoustic. But there's also settings where I may not really I might want brushes, or I might want the hot rods, or I might write spaces where the drums aren't constantly playing. And it also depends a lot on your drummer, too. Like, you might need to vary the musicians that you're playing with and, like, see for the type of environment you're making. If you had I don't know if you have an example of anything.
What do you mean?
If you have an example of something.
No, because like I said, I kind of like solved the issue by not playing with drummers.
Okay. But you still want to be able to incorporate them.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll play this piece, which mostly is using brushes. You don't want to do that all the time. But hot rods are a really nice solution where you still get the attack, but it's just not as loud. But I'll just play a little bit of this, if I could have you the way I want you. And it's for Black Earth strings, so it's mostly strings. So that's just with brushes. And then this section doesn't even have drums. Got him doing something else, playing the glockenspiel. Yeah, so you can find all kind of new textures, and there's nobody to say you have to have this certain instrumentation. If you don't want it, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it at all. You might make some new discoveries having a different type of instrumentation. So maybe it's a new challenge. Like sometimes I like writing the first piece, one of the earlier pieces I played, Visitation, that had their very composed music for improvisers, didn't have a bass. I don't know if you guys didn't notice, but it was just like drums, piano, flute, and sax, and no bass. And I purposely didn't want bass. I wanted to challenge a pianist who, Craig Taborn, couldn't do anything anyway, so you didn't need a bass. And then sometimes I'd write the bass line in the drums, which was really a fun challenge. So changing up your instrumentation is a really fun way to like find new ways to get your point across. Yeah. Yeah?
I have a question about the combination of styles and the versatility in your music. You showed us two pieces where you really jumped easily from styles to styles,
Yeah.
Fast drive and more reggae feeling, blah, blah, blah. And as you said it, you make it with lots of fluidity, it's not like, of course you notice, but there's no collision between when you jump from one to the other. And this, I think, I find it very interesting, and so I was wondering, maybe when it comes in your composition process, is it at the beginning of the composition process you are already fixing of the styles you are going to use, or does it come later on when you interpret melody with band, maybe, you know what I mean?
Cool. Well, I'll go back to move for that question because sorry, there's so many pieces on this one. Here it is. Because it had, like you said, it had house music. It had kind of a 6/8, action 6/8. It had there was aspect, straight ahead jazz, and then it also had reggae. And so for this, and there's other songs that I'm doing that. I think what happens is I'm an Aquarius, so it's like I have different approaches to composing in different situations. Sometimes I'll start with my voice and I'll make a melody with my voice. Other times I'll start on the piano and I'll like think about the chords first. And then other times I'll think about the words and I'll just kind of hear the melody and start writing it. So in terms of like the fluidity between these different styles, it happens kind of organically in my ear. And so I mean, sometimes, like for this one, I think I told you, because this was for Haki Madaburi, and because of me knowing like elements of his life, like having the school where they're playing the African drums, and how this song, like the poetry is about self-determination. And so I did intentionally want there to be a reggae thing in there because of that, because I feel that reggae music before African-American music, soul and African-American music, was much more about liberation than it was much earlier in expressing like lyrics that were very intrinsically about liberation than we had in the U.S. Like it really didn't happen until the 60s in the U.S., but it was like earlier in Jamaica. And so I wanted to have that aspect, and also because of the diaspora, I wanted to have these different elements kind of swimming together. And in terms of making the connection, I'm also going back and forth between this 6/8. If you notice, like when I bring in the this is the reggae right here. It doesn't, you can't tell looking at it that it sounds like reggae, but it's still in the 6 because it's coming out of this African 6/8, and then it goes into more of a kind of 2-step feel where you're having, quarter, 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 and you see this in the piano. So it's hard for me to explain how I do that fluidly. But it does have to do with having the music internalized. I think that's really important. And I think it's really important as composers that you sing and you dance. Because when you sing, basically when you're writing music or when you're playing music, your vocal cords are moving to the notes that you're hearing. And so the more you're connected to your ear, the closer that's going to be if you let your voice, if you empower your voice. And then in terms of pulse and rhythm, having it internalized inside of your body will help you to hear. Like for me, everything is in 1. Like I don't hear, like there could be something in 5 and then it goes to 11 and then it goes to 9 or whatever. It doesn't matter because I can feel where the 1 is. When you can do that, then I think it helps to have the fluidity between these different things that are happening, because it goes from the 6/8, then it goes into the reggae feel, which normally reggae would be in 4, but this is in 6, but you don't hear it necessarily when you're listening to it because you're just hearing on, off, on, off, on, off. And then later, let's see, then it's more kind of like a dance groove here, bum, 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 and it is in 4, and then it's just going all over the place. And so a lot of times I do think about stylistically what I want to include, and then I use my ear to decide where it happens, and it's all about having fun for the most part. So just to play that example again, I can go to, let's see, from the poetry into the reggae, that would be, that came from here. So it'd be maybe back here somewhere.
We ain't coming to Clark Gable. Either you is or you ain't. The dead living are the world makers, the image breakers, the rule takers. Black man, black woman, can you stop a hurricane?
Right here.
Can you do it, huh? I say, how can you do it? Moving like a drunk gorilla. Ha ha, chi chi, ha ha, chi chi, ha ha, chi chi, ha ha, chi chi.
But 6/8 is can still be 4, right? So part of what made that smooth is that I still have the 6/8 happening in the drums over the feeling of the reggae beat that's in the piano and the bass, So a lot of times when you have a transition stylistically, if you maintain part of the previous style within the new one, then that's going to help smooth it out. So in the drums, I still have the 6/8 going over the feeling of the reggae here in the bass and the piano, and then the melody line. So that was like one example of how that works. I know that happened a lot also in the first piece I played, Think in the Universe. I don't have that score with me, but I think, that's a pretty good answer, is the overlap. You might continue one aspect of the style while you bring in the new idea, and that helps to make a smoother transition. But I try to do that organically in my ear versus like just forcing it, you know, because then it's gonna sound rigid, like if you do it like that.
The kind of polyrhythmic approach, but not a polyrhythmic approach, but not about just two different rhythms at the same time, but two different rhythm styles at the same time.
You say when I have two different rhythmic ideas happening? Yeah, I call that rhythmic tension, which I really like a lot. So I'll do that also harmonically sometimes. Like sometimes the harmony and the melody have a little bit of a rub and a tension with them. And it's part of my aesthetic is that I like things to be, I definitely have a lot of density in my music. Like it's not very like simple and elegant and clean. It's like a lot of things going on at the same time. That's part of my aesthetic. And I do also with the improvisers, I like things to be a little messy, you know, which you heard with more of the stuff with the graphic scores. But yeah, to me, that's what makes the music alive is when you have a rhythmic tension. And what you'll also notice with the drum parts is I want the drummers to always be embellishing off the idea, like not to just play the exact pattern over and over again, you know, because that's what makes the music alive. So they're to take the idea and then embellish off of it. But yeah, 6 against 4 and these things. You probably heard that also in this piece with the orchestra where it was like, you know, it's in 3, but then there's this motion happening on the second beat against the melody. And so there's like this rhythmic tension happening where you have a pulse that's like 2 and 3, but the melody is like happening on 1 and the end of 2, and like, you know, so it's kind of making this tension that to me brings life to the music and brings, the tension is part of life because we deal with that, right? And I try to incorporate that into the music. Uh-huh.
I'm totally fond of the way you are questioning your approach when we've seen the score, time walk, nature, time walking. I don't remember the title.
Nature's Balance. This one.
Yeah, and the other one, Xenogenesis.
Uh-huh.
All those graphic notation. I really appreciate. I suppose my question is: when have you choose? When have you chosen to go out those?
From writing very
I mean, so
composed to the graphics. Or?
I suppose you have a hold on. I will think about the word. It's regarding your relation to nature and
Okay.
and every human when you see nature, when you feel nature, and when you want to confront those urban human stuff with this nature, I really appreciate the way you transcribe into a graphic notation, which is not
Yeah.
traditional Occidental
Yeah.
musical notation. And those kind of drawing, I really appreciate it because it opened a new world totally, and a really organic way to. Because I'm in the same process, I was wondering how can I don't remember. There is some blowing. It's some.
This one?
Yeah, another one. It's at the beginning.
The one that I played is this one.
Yeah, just after that, the picture. Yeah, blowing.
Yes.
See, the wind. I see the wind.
Yes.
So I totally fond of it. And when have you decided when you are in the process of composing music, you say, okay, if maybe this idea I won't be able to write in this strict rhythmic
Right.
musical notation. So okay, I forgot that. I choose another way to express myself, to express the idea,
Yeah.
and so. When I see that, it seems like you do this in a really fluently, no problem to let the material express.
Yeah. I feel that the music has a life of its own, and we have to stay out of the way of it. And that's the best way to write and the best way to improvise is you empower the music to have the life, and then you allow it to exist and you learn from it. So in this case, this piece was a milestone for me because I was facing an expression that I never had done before in this whole suite, all of this music, because I wanted to deal with this emotion that is a really difficult one. It's like fear. Nobody wants to face that. Why? And I wanted to confront it in music. And I wanted to confront being uncomfortable. And I couldn't do that by just writing measures and this measure and that measure. And, I wanted to have energy expressed through the music, through the instruments. And the instruments also represented environments, and also they told a story, but they were like characters a lot of times in this piece. Like for example here, I didn't play this one, but the flute, the trumpet, and sax are doing these blasts right here. And then this is a response of the rhythm section. So it's like kind of like these little explosions, call and response. And for the drums, there's no point in trying to write that in a bunch of rhythms. You know what I mean? And then with the horns, I had specific notes, but I wanted them to go through them. There is a sequence, but it's broken up, because it's not in a pulse. So when you get off the pulse, what is the point of going from measure to measure then? So that's why I like to breathe. And my favorite way to write is with a ruler and a pen and a blank piece of paper. I don't even like notation paper, because I make my own lines, and then I can have these spaces for where I want them, I could play this for you to see how this works. So here is a duet with cello and bass. They're playing these exact notes in this sequence, but they're choosing how long and short the notes are. And they're not playing at the same time. So they're doing this, and then here's the vocalist, making these sounds, and it's colliding with, again, this statement by the horn players, and this is a piano solo. and then going back to the original idea here until it ends.
How do you direct the musicians for the first reading?
Well, in this case, I was playing flute, so I'm making this gesture for each attack. And I give the power to the piano and the drums to gesture the response. So a lot of times I'll delegate where I'm not always leading. It might be someone else in their instrument that's leading the transition. So I'll just play it. Huh?
You give a cue? That's what you
I
say?
just do this.
And before playing, you arrive with your material. Nobody knows the music. Before starting the work of reading the piece,
Yeah, I write
do you
this
say
first.
something or?
I bring this to the musicians.
You what?
No, I bring this music.
Okay. Ah, yeah.
I guess maybe what you wanted to know is if the musicians see the music before the first rehearsal.
No, there's no point because they won't understand. and the thing is, like, a lot of times if I travel somewhere and they want me to, oh, we want you to play with our ensemble, can you bring music? And I say, yeah. And then it's like 2 months beforehand and they're like, can you send the music? And I'm like, no. And they're like, why? And they're like, because you're not going to understand. And then you're going to have a million questions and you still won't understand. So just wait till I come. And then they get nervous and they get upset. Like, you're not letting us prepare. And I'm like, you can't. And then they see this and they say, oh, okay. Yeah.
Very specific, I think, in your, this kind of approach, your approach is that it feels like, tell me if it's true, you give all the information to all musicians.
Yeah, that's what I like. I like everybody to be on the same page. Conceptually, in life, and in music.
I have a double question, which is related to something that Laurent Cugny told us 2 days ago. And he believes that in a certain way we are all connected to our first influences. So I was wondering what would be yours, and also do you feel the same? Like, do you feel connected to your past when you're writing music also?
Yeah, I agree that we are definitely intimately connected with our history, with what we've been influenced by, and with our past. For example, for me to face fear with this music, I had to go back to being a child, and my mother was a voice hearer, so she heard voices, and she talked about ghosts. And I believed that this was real because I was a child and I was really scared. And I would have nightmares and I would because I was worried that these were bad ghosts and that they might do something to her or to me. And so that feeling, I had to go to that feeling to make this music, because a lot of my music before I wrote this was very happy. And then when I wrote this, people were like, where did this come from? How did you even hear this? You know what I mean? So I had to go. Also, my brother plays the guitar, and he would try to scare me when I was a child, and he would try to play really scary music to scare me. And so I had to go back to those influences in order to come up with this idea. I just play a little tiny bit of this is the live one. Do I have the old one? The other one is, I have 2 versions, that's why.
And would it be possible for you also to share with us some of your main source of inspiration?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Thanks.
What is this? Doesn't say what it is. Oh, there we go. So I just play a little bit of this. So the strings sound like maybe they're playing random, but they're actually playing this. That's just an example of that. So, so you say you wanted me to play some influences?
I have a quick question about this.
Oh, okay.
Would you say that reading the score is a part of listening to it also?
Yeah, especially when I have a handwritten score, it's like, it gives you more of an idea of what the music is about from the feeling of the way it's written. Yeah.
So would you also present that during the concert, for example, to the audience? Or
Not
would you prefer to
normally.
keep it
No.
hidden?
No, they don't usually see the score.
It's a kind of this way to write music is like a liberation. Actually, your look at freedom.
Yeah, definitely. It is about freedom. Because, I mean, I am using notation, but I'm just doing it my own way. And I actually just wrote a book called The Mandorla Letters. And I did the same thing. I completely broke the form for a book. It's not a novel. It's not like written from page 1 to whatever. You can open it up anywhere you want. Sometimes you have to turn it sideways. And it has like poetry, nonfiction, and fiction, and like kind of cultural theory, and it's just like all mixed up together. So it's kind of like this score. And I'm doing a reading on Sunday for the book. I have to figure out where exactly it is, but I guess you can find out. But yeah. Yes. Huh?
If you want the information, I have it.
Oh, you have it? Okay.
Elle fait une présentation de son livre dimanche. Vous me dites si vous avez des trucs à suivre, les infos. Oui, c'est la parole à vous. De mémoire.
Can you explain in few words what do you mean by decolonizing beauty? I mean, decolonizing, I understand, but beauty, decolonizing the beauty, it's like
How does that work?
Philosophical. I suppose there is a strong idea behind it.
It is. So, decolonizing beauty, I felt that we have ideas about beauty. I have this thing called the edge of beauty, where I think I brought up before that I try to push the idea of something beautiful to the space where you're not sure, is this really beautiful? Do I even like this? I do that as a flutist with my sound, where I go into growls and go into these other sounds, adding my voice. And I do it with the music because I feel that we make a lot of assumptions in our lives. Like, we make assumptions even about what is beautiful. And, we don't necessarily think about it so much, but we have these ideas. In each culture, there's an idea of what beauty is that's different. They may be different from each other in each culture. So I'm looking at Western culture with decolonizing beauty because I feel that classical music is one of the most celebrated aspects of music that's considered beautiful. But it's an aspect that I also really love. Like I love Western classical music. And so, but I want to I'm entering these other aspects, these other forces into it. So I wanted to write the part for the orchestra to be very quote unquote orchestral. Like I wasn't trying to take them so much out of the box of what they do, but I was actually playing around with some Baroque ideas, some like very traditional classical ideas, and then I was intervening free improvisation and these other sounds. And so rather, when we look at colonization, it's like this idea that like the opposite. It's like classical music is being brought to the Andes or something, or you know what I mean? Like if we looked at it in a symbolic way, it's like bringing these ideas of the West to Africa or somewhere else and saying, no, this is how you should do it. But in this piece, I'm doing the opposite. I'm taking classical music and I'm bringing in the sounds of the quote-unquote colonized and intervening into the classical music with it. Huh?
Was there a director to play it?
I was the conductor. And that was really challenging. That's why there's some places where it says the flute soloing and I'm not, because I'm conducting. Yeah.
Concerning the context that you described, we can see there is every time a different town, a different city, where you work.
I'm sorry, my ears aren't so good. Can you say a little louder?
Yeah, basically, in which city do you live, and how is the musical context in it, and does it influence you as a composer?
My city, okay.
Yeah, because we can see anytime a different city, on your score.
Oh yeah, every time I'm writing, I'm in a different place. Yeah, and I like putting that. I was in Pittsburgh. I had just moved to Pittsburgh when I wrote this. I had been living first in Chicago for a very long time, then in California, Long Beach, then Pittsburgh. Now I'm in North Carolina. And each city does have an influence on what I do. I think Chicago has influenced me the most. That's where I developed my music. In the environment of Chicago, it's a very strong arts community. And in Pittsburgh, I had literally just moved, so I didn't have so much. I don't think there's so much of a Pittsburgh influence in this piece, but it's where I was, 5 a.m. I had a composition teacher that told me there's a certain time of day that each person has their best creative time. And I'm somebody who likes to stay up late, but I found out my best time for composing was like 5 a.m. So a lot of this music is written very early in the morning, yeah. And I know I never played, she wanted me to play some influences. I could play, let's see. Eric Dolphy was a big influence. I'm just trying to pull something here. Well, this is good because both Mingus and Dolphy are influences, so I'll play this. Example. I'm sure you could probably hear the influence there. I mean, Mingus was a really great composer, very ambitious, and very like a lot of diversity of ideas in it. But you could also hear very strong melodies and blues influence in his work. And Dolphy was just like amazing flutist, like one of my favorites. Even though he played so many other instruments, he is one of my favorite jazz flutists. So those are two of my influences. Okay.
A lot of character that are often very purposeful. Your melodies, and I'm just wondering, what do you think about when you design melodies? What are the qualities you try to impart to them when you write them?
Asking about writing melodies, and that goes into my sometimes using my voice when I write a melody, because I feel that it's the most organic way to create a melody, or sometimes on my flute. But I'm always changing how I write, and I like my melodies to have a shape. And I also like them to be playful, because even like you listening to this melody here that Eric Dolphy was playing on the flute, it's like part of it was very, kind of like solemn, da 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 da. It's very singable. But then there's a part that's not. And I think I like doing that. I like some melodies to be very memorable and singable, but I also I don't like them to be rigid, so it's important, I might have a concept and then I might play around with it so that it feels right to me in my body, so you get the idea, then you sing it or you play it so that it feels comfortable in internalizing it, but I think everyone can write really great melodies, but when you're writing them on the computer, that's usually not good, because you can get stuck in a really rigid way writing on a computer. So it's best to use your ear, use your instrument, play around with it, record it, listen to it. Sometimes you might have a process of making the music on Logic or GarageBand and then writing it out, so that it feels right. You want it to feel right. So hopefully that's helpful. Yeah. Somebody else had a question over here. Does anybody? I know you have a lot of questions, but I just want to make sure other people. Did you? Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I have a kind of very general question. Because in your music, sometimes you have lots of improvisation, expected from the musicians to bring it. And so we can see that you can compose in a way a lot of things, define a lot of things or define less. And so the general question is this, what is composing music for you, and maybe what is the minimum composing for you? You see what I mean?
What is minimum composing?
Yes, in a way. There's two questions. One very general, what is composing for you, and maybe what is the smallest thing that would be composition?
Okay. So composing for me is telling a story. You have something to say, And it doesn't have to be something anybody understands, but it has some kind of meaning to you in what's happening. And it's something that fulfills you. Like when you hear it, it makes you feel joy. It makes you feel like something that was inside of you came out and now it exists in the world. You know, I always felt that music is like, it's like a sanctuary. It's like we have all these things we don't have any control of in our lives. You know, we don't have control over things that happen to us or how people treat us or, you know, people get sick or you get sick or, you know, people are mean. You know what I mean? But with the music, it's like you can create something and nobody can do anything to it. Like that thing you made is safe and it has its own life, even if it's not physical. I mean, it does. It touches us. It touches our body, our ears. Sometimes, like a low bass sound will actually hit our bodies and hit our hearts, you know. But it exists in the ether also. And so when you compose, it's like you're directing the energy of sound, you know, to have your DNA, like your thoughts are being projected through this sound. And it's a really powerful thing. I don't think we should take it for granted because music can really change people's hearts. They can be transformative, you know, and it also can be damaging, you know what I mean? So it's a lot of responsibility. In terms of simplest composition, I think when you work with the breath, that's the simplest composition. I mean, when we take a breath, we don't think of that as music. It is a type of music. But if I just say, ah, like if I say, ah, that's a breath. But if I say, ah, then now that's music. So I composed just by directing my breath. That's the simplest form of composition, I think. Yeah, that would be my answer. Yeah. Yes?
Also a question, you say you like your music to be narrative, to tell stories.
Uh-huh.
And I was wondering, do you also use your music in a political way, or do you stay away from this, or how do you relate to that?
No, I do. Liberation narratives, the poetry of Hakeem Madhubuti is very political.
Yeah.
It's about Black liberation in the U.S. I have other songs from the Mandela Awakening Project where I wrote this poetry that Avery Young is speaking, and you know, it's in response to the Black Lives Matter movement. So each piece has its own world. That's how I look at it. So some songs have an intention to say something. Others are more about spirituality or meditation. You know, so that's the power of the music, is we have these choices, and each song can be its own, have its own purpose and its own intention. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Like for example, I'm trying to think. Shiny Divider.
I want to pick up my blade. But then again, there's gotta be another way. This is not a story. People live it every day. Waiting for the bus in the morning. Thankful for a job for the moment. Why do people have to be so mean? Hey! I want to pick up my blade. But say there's got to be a better way. Red lava burns with sweat. And we keep on walking that way. The earth is melting. But we keep on walking that way. Look at the price I but we keep on walking that way. Hey, 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 hey. The oceans are filled with plastic bags, and the fish are told, but they keep on walking that way. That way.
Maybe that's it. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I think that it shows that collaboration is very important. Each one of us as a musician has our spirit and who we are, and as a band leader, you all have ensembles, and it's about bringing people that in different combinations of people, when you have a purpose as a composer, that help you to say what you need to say, you know, through their talents, but then they're bringing a lot to the music too, you know what I mean? So a lot of times when you're working with improvisers, you're facilitating a message, but the message isn't just from you, it's also from them, and you want to make space for them to be themselves and to, you know, but it wouldn't have happened in the way that it did without your vision of that, but also it wouldn't happen without their contribution too. So it's like a collaboration. And then a lot of, you know, we all know that as composers and as jazz musicians, you don't really make much money with a recording. You know, so the conditions of support usually come from performance, and then everyone is having the opportunity to go to different places and to perform. This group, this Mandorla Awakening project, we had a lot of opportunities to perform internationally with this group. And the fun part is the way this music is written, it's very simply written. And so we never actually rehearsed after the first time we rehearsed. Like, we would do air rehearsals where we would just like kind of sing down how stuff goes. And we could do a rehearsal in like 10 minutes for the whole hour of music, which is really cool. That's one thing I like about writing this way too, is it's conceptual, so it's easy to translate to musicians what we're doing and how we're doing it once they understand, you know. But yeah, thank you for giving me a space to share.